session on collective bargaining from 6 to 7. And now that we are starting this, we will please stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance. He's working on it. And on our so we have 2 students from Issaquah High School. So are they on Zoom or are they in the person? Probably on Zoom, both on Zoom. So we have a Chloe and Libby, it looks like. So if Chloe and Libby are out there, they can turn on their video and unmute themselves. Ooh, there we go. Nope. I think people are still coming in. Oh, there we go. I see that. All right. Do we have Chloe or Libby out there? Okay. He's looking for him.
I know he is. Yeah, she's got.
Hi, sorry, it wouldn't let me start the video or unmute myself.
No problem. I understand. Let's see.
Same, it wouldn't let me.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Oh, no, we have it. There we go. Libby. Excellent.
Hi.
Oh, good. Yay. We got you both on. Okay. Thank you. So we have Chloe and Libby from Issaquah High School. So we'll let you go ahead and start with your input. Thank you for joining us.
Of course.
Yeah, Chloe. Who wants to go first?
I'm sorry, wait, what are we supposed to be?
Oh,
say?
so this is your opportunity to give input. You guys usually had some questions that you usually answer during this part. And go ahead, you can introduce yourself and say what grade you're in, and then share the input that you wanted to in relation to one of the questions.
Sorry, what were the questions? We were told to join at 7. I didn't hear the questions.
Oh, I don't actually. So they didn't give you any instructions? Yeah, just share a little bit about what's going on in your school.
Okay.
Something that might be happening right now.
Okay. Well, I'm Libby. I'm in 12th grade from Issaquah. And right now in school, at least recently, like the first couple weeks without the mask mandate, which has been pretty interesting around school. And then also just the ASB class, we're planning TOLO, which is April 2nd.
Oh, that's exciting to get to do TOLO. Good. All right. Chloe, would you like to share anything that's happening at school right now?
Yeah, sorry, I'm Chloe, I'm a senior. Yeah, I think we've just been struggling with like the mask mandates mostly because a lot of kids don't feel completely comfortable taking off the mask. So it's been kind of like a hard balance, like being sensitive to the people with masks and also like realizing like people do have the right to take them off. So I think as like ASB kind of being sensitive to that, but also still being able to like plan fun events that people can like attend, but also feel safe in.
Good, thank you. All right, feel free to join us for the rest of the meeting if you want. You would turn off your videos now. You don't have to stay on. And then later in our agenda, item number 2 in the regular part, we're going to be talking about our new GP 12 related to how we're changing our student rep program. And so if you're still around, feel free to chime in if you'd like to give any input. All right. All right. Well, thank you for joining us, and maybe we'll see you later in the meeting. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. We are on to public input. Nobody had signed up in here. Is there anybody in the room that would like to do public input? Oh, we've got one. Go ahead and come up to the microphone. And then if we have anybody in Zoom, to go ahead and raise your hand. We are really going to keep this one to no more than our 10 minutes because we have a lot on our agenda today. And Director Mullings is my timer. Oh, wait, is that? Yeah, to make the mic come on.
You don't need to hear me. My name's Dana Rundle. I just wanted to thank you guys for all of your time and energy you put into the superintendent search. I know it was lengthy. President Moore, I know you carry the burden of this, and I just wanted to say thank you guys all. You know you're not going to please everybody with your decision, but I know you did your best effort, and whoever you choose is going to be best for our district.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. It has been a big effort this week, and everybody has participated in it.
I
So-
think we should probably also acknowledge that Dana has some firsthand understanding of how this goes, given that her husband Fred was just named as the new incoming
Yay,
superintendent
kudos to
for the
Fred.
Mercer Island School District.
We're very happy. Yes, they're one of our, yeah. Mercer Island being one of our very nice neighbors.
That's right. That's right.
That's right. All right. Doesn't look like we have any public input at this point, so we will move on to the approval of the consent agenda.
I move the consent agenda be approved as presented.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor of approval of the consent agenda, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Nope. Unanimously passes.
Thank you.
All right. Are there any changes to the regular agenda?
There are none.
All right. We are cruising along. Look at that. This is how we're going to get this one done. All right. We are up to our big one tonight, which is our superintendent search. We won't be starting with a motion on this one because we don't actually know exactly where this discussion will take us. We will see where this goes. I will be accepting public input on this item, but I'm going to wait until the board has had a chance to have to give their input and a motion is made. And then if people would like to speak to the motion, they can give public input on that. We've already received a ton of input through this whole process, which we're going to talk about. And I did want to start by kind of just going through our process. But first, I'd like to start by sharing a big thank you to the 3 candidates that we brought into the district these last 3 days. We had Dr. Mary Templeton on Monday, we had Miss Heather Tauyik on Tuesday, and then Dr. Jennifer Bethman on Wednesday. And so each of them were very gracious, came in, engaged with our community, and left giving me very nice compliments of our overall school district and the people in it. But a little bit more about how we got to this point. It started with our superintendent retiring, and you've been with us 9 years, and we are so sad to see you leave. And that was announced back in November to have your retirement be at the end of this year. And so we got into action and started working on what would our plan be to go ahead and find ourselves a new superintendent. And so, hold on one second here. I got myself out of my own notes. I know I clicked in the wrong place. Just bear with me. All right. So right off the bat, we did a thought exchange where we wanted to engage with the community and ask, what are your thoughts about the most important characteristics, skills, leadership qualities, and experiences of an ideal superintendent? And we really got engagement with the community. There were 683 participants, 977 thoughts, and 30,222 ratings. The survey was across the board in all quadrants of the district because we asked people what school they were from. There were over 400 parents, 185 staff, 12 students. I love our students engaging with us, and 53 community members. It was interesting. They created a word cloud, and the top rated words in the word cloud were fresh, transparent, outside ideas, communications, and trust. There were a whole bunch of key thoughts that kind of then we use to help drive our thinking, able to put students first, strategic thinker, forward planner, outside search fresh ideas, accountable, highly experienced, personal integrity, collaborative, national search, change maker, someone to challenge our system, great communicator, transparent, relationship builder. That became our foundation for where we started our search. We reviewed all of the results from the thought exchange. And then we went into our next step, which was to select a search firm to have somebody help us have wide breadth in our recruitment. Suzanne and I kind of formed a little subgroup. We requested proposals from different search firms. We narrowed it down and interviewed 4 search firms, which we interviewed the week of December 6th. Then the board had a meeting on December 9th where we discussed the qualifications of the search firms in exec session, came out into regular section, debated the firms, and selected McPherson and Jacobson, who have been helping us with this search. We very quickly organized a special meeting on January 3rd, and the whole meeting was dedicated to talking with the search firm, understanding their process, the expectations for the search, the timeline and the calendar of the search so that they could help meet our needs. I know they presented a calendar, and of course the board pushed back and said, we'd like to do it even sooner, and said the goal was to finish this by the end of March. Today's March 24th. I think we're going to make it. They shared that in general, we'd probably have around 20 applicants, maybe 6 to 10 would fit our criteria, that they would bring those forward with more in-depth information, having those candidates answer 3 questions. They talked about the next step being probably the board narrowing it to around 3 candidates and bringing those forward for all-day interviews. They also shared with us information about creating an advisory stakeholder interview group, which we did. And then talked about their process to post the application, put it out in front of a wide variety of organizations, and then their recruitment, going out and deliberately recruiting across the country because they're a national firm to bring us the very best candidates. They talked about the stakeholder group meetings that they wanted to do. They usually do 10 or 12. With different groups in our community, in addition to a SurveyMonkey survey for just anyone in the community. The questions that they proposed asking had to do with, what is great about the community? What is great about the district? What are the issues the new superintendent will face? What are the qualities and characteristics desired in our new superintendent? And then after they did the stakeholder meetings, they'll bring us back an executive summary of it. And then they use that to try to evaluate the candidates and match the best candidates and those qualities for what we're looking for. So that was the process they laid out. And I would say in the reality, that process ended up being pretty much what happened for us. And we were able to stick to that schedule. After that meeting, we finalized our calendar and created the actual stakeholder groups. We ended up with about 20 stakeholder group meetings, way more than they expected, but they stepped up and went through because that was the identified need in our community. We had our own they had the stakeholder group meetings with labor group, staff, building administrators, cabinet and district office staff. They met with students that came out of all of our high schools and middle schools. They had a stakeholder meeting with both special ed parents and special ed staff. They did them with PTSA Council, Issaquah Schools Foundation, and Volunteers for Issaquah Schools was included. They did it with service groups. We had 4 parent stakeholder meetings. Then they gathered all of that information and brought it back to the board on March 10th, where the board had a discussion with the search firm, Steve Lauder and his team. We reviewed the executive summary as well as receiving all of the raw data that came from those stakeholder meetings. Once the applications closed, they used the results from the stakeholder and their SurveyMonkey to help them decide, really which of the candidates they want to vet deeper and bring to us. So on March 16th, the board met in executive session with the search consultants for 4 hours, and we went through all the candidates. There were total 27 applicants, 11 were from Washington. The remainder were from Alaska, Pennsylvania, Texas, Connecticut, California, Illinois, Wisconsin, Arizona, Florida, New Jersey, Ohio, and Nebraska. And some we had multiples from those states. The search firm kind of narrowed it down to 12 that they considered very qualified against the characteristics we were looking for. And even on some of those, we still said, well, wait, what about that one? Or what about that one? And they shared that information with us. Of the 12, 8 were from Washington, 4 were from out of state. Good quality candidates to choose from. And from this, the board decided on 3 finalists to interview in the district. All right. As we prepared for those interview days, we created this advisory interview group that was going to interview each candidate, the same group. So they had to commit to all 3 days. like an hour and a half each day to interview the candidate and provide feedback. They used pre-selected questions that came from us. It was a big time commitment, but I was just super surprised that there was a lot of interest in doing it. We, of course, reached out to the IEA and SEIU to have reps on it. We had a principal representative. We had somebody from ISF and PTA Council, and then we wanted community and parents. And that's where we advertised that ask through our e-news. We had 25 applicants. They submitted a little paragraph about why they wanted to do it. Suzanne and I read through all of those applications and settled on 2 community members and 2 parents. And so that was now a group of 10 that were able to interview all 3 candidates and provide us feedback. So then we went into our actual interview days on earlier this week. That was just this week, March 21st, 22nd, and 23rd. And the first thing we did in the week was to post videos of each of the 3 candidates that they had been created over the weekend so that our community could learn about all 3 of these candidates. And attached to it was a Survey Monkey that you were able to fill out, identifying strengths and weaknesses of each candidate. And we've received that survey results and have read through all of it. And then while the candidate was here the rest of their day here with us, they did meet and greets and question and answer sessions with our all administrators, who then provided feedback through a Survey Monkey. They went on a tour of a school. We had one candidate visit Pine Lake, one candidate went to Issaquah High School, another went to Briarwood, and somebody did a quick stop by the Holly Street Early Learning Center. And then they were also driven around a few other schools. And all of us kept telling them, it is 110 square miles and you can't go see it all. It's just too big. All right. Then while they were back here, they did their advisory group interview, and that was facilitated by Assistant Sup Donna Hood. And she was able to work with them and bring us the collective feedback of that group each day. They did the candidate did a meet and greet with the admin support staff in this building, including the TOSAs. And we collected their feedback by doing these paper exit slips. The candidates had a meet and greet with students because the student voice is so important. We had about 15 students from our 4 high schools. As it turned out, it wasn't required, but as it turned out, it was pretty much the same students every day. They were highly engaged with this entire process, and they provided their feedback through Andrew McCormick, the executive director of high schools, who facilitated that group and collected their feedback for us. There was also a meet and greet question and answer session with the union leadership. And again, it turned out most people that were able to attend were the same people, although it wasn't required. And then after their 3 days, Carlina was able to kind of gather their collective feedback and provide it to us. Another piece to their very busy day was to have a meal with 2 community members. We wanted them to be able to also get a feel of our greater Issaquah school district, but as all of the communities around it. We decided to lean upon some of our former school directors, and Lisa Callan, Barb DeMichelle, Leslie Austin, and Connie Fletcher all agreed to take part in this, as well as Kaylee Jake, who's the executive director of the Garage, which is a teen cafe in Issaquah, and Janelle Tamalea from the president of the Issaquah Schools Foundation. So we were able to have kind of a nice little break for them to have this nice little interaction with some of our wonderful community members. And then, of course, the candidates also had a 1-hour interview with the board themselves with questions we had pre-selected, and we were able to share a meal with them. So it was an exhaustive day for the candidates, but they stood up to the test and really shined while they were here within our community. And then we gathered all of that feedback. And I know that may seem like that would be impossible to do, but we were prepared doing it. So I had been collecting the feedback every single day. And at the end of Wednesday, I was able to get all the feedback from the Survey Monkeys because they closed that afternoon and that information was sent to us. The feedback came in multiple forms. Like I said, some was Survey Monkey, some was summarized, some was paper, but we were able to bring it all together. And then just yesterday from 7 to 9 p.m., the board met in exec session. And we literally brought up the feedback on the computer, put it up on a big screen in the other room, and read through it together. Took us 2 hours. We talked about what we could see and learn from the feedback. We could see the strengths and weaknesses. We talked about what we saw as the strengths and weaknesses of each of the candidates. It was a really valuable experience going through all that feedback together because it let us, hey, I noticed this and you noticed that about what was said. And so we were really able to bounce off of each other and dig deeper into the information while we were doing it together. Okay. And then I know this is a tiring process. I know. In the end, we really do have good choices with these candidates. But now is the time for the board to have an actual discussion to lead to a decision. Because in exec session, all we did was review the feedback and share our own views of strengths and weaknesses of the candidates. We don't make any decisions in there. That's what we come out here to do for the first time, to actually talk about where we'd like to go for our next superintendent. So I'm now tired of talking. So I'm going to throw it out to the board to share their perspective and to move us along in this process. Suzanne can start.
So first off, I'm tired just listening to everything that you said, and you did way more of it than I did. So it really has been an all-consuming process. I want to dial back a little bit to the exec session where the search firm presented the candidates to the board. It was difficult going from the dozen or so candidates that they had vetted for us. And they did that based largely off of that first Survey Monkey from the stakeholder reports that talked about, what's good about the community, what are the issues, what does the superintendent need to know? And they based their selection process on that. And I really want to thank, before I forget, I really want to thank all the community members who participated in the stakeholder group, who participated in the advisory group interview. I was really surprised how many people wanted to do that because it was a big commitment. All of the administrative staff, the community members that met with the candidates, and of course, the candidates themselves. We had a challenging time narrowing that group of 12 down to 3 finalists. There were a lot of strengths in a lot of different candidates. We watched a lot of videos. We bantered back and forth.
And sometimes we watched the videos more than once.
We watched the videos more than once. I think in a way we had an embarrassment of riches. The 3 candidates that we brought back for finalist interviews, I truly believe that any one of those candidates could come to Issaquah and successfully lead the district. So I was really excited about that. I was kind of scared going into it that that wouldn't be the case. Obviously, I do have a favorite, but we'll get into that later. I do want to say they all focused in on a lot of the key things that the stakeholders talked about. They talked about going out, listening to the community, being present, the importance of communication, the importance of the feedback loop, the importance of a vision for the district and getting to know the community and what the community values are and where to move the district forward. Dr. Templeton came in with both large district experience as an administrator and then a smaller district experience as a superintendent. She had a record of improving the graduation rate at the high school she worked at in Spokane. She had a big emphasis on being very visible in the community. And she talked about marketing and branding as a part of the vision, which I actually think is really important. That's something I want to talk about later when we talk about our vision and our strategic plan. Heather Talyuk has national experience as well as Washington. We've already gotten some pushback from people. Well, gee, you ended up with 3 candidates from Washington. Ms. Talyuk, actually, most of her experience is in Providence, Rhode Island and New York. However, she has been in Mukilteo the last couple of years, which means she has that national experience and she understands the complexities of Washington. I liked that she shared her own story in the context of equity. And she has simply stellar education credentials. Brown, Columbia, MIT. It's like, it doesn't get better than that. But the other thing I liked, even though she was the only candidate who did not have a doctorate, is that she has an MBA. And I think as we move into some very difficult budget conversations, which are going to last well beyond this year, I think that's a really important skill set. Last, certainly not least, we had Jennifer Bethman from Bethel, very solid candidate with depth of experience, a lot of experience developing and implementing strategic plans, very experienced in bargaining. She has experience opening a comprehensive high school. This is experience we so want to have someday. We really want to be able to say we've done that. So again, those are just kind of the high points that I picked on each of these candidates. There's a lot more I could say, but other people want to talk. But I did just really want to make the point that we had 3 really strong, solid candidates, and any of whom I think could do a good job in this.
I will, thanks. And again, I guess I'd just like to thank both of you in how much work that you've put into this process and how well organized and scheduled we've all been throughout the process, and just how deeply appreciative I am for your work and your efforts. Yeah, I think going through and listening back to how I'm very proud of how we've engaged in the community and how we've gathered insights and feedback. And I know for me, that's been really important to focus my thoughts and to focus through that selection process of narrowing down, I guess, the narrowing down process. And it's been really important. I know I go back to even that original thought exchange, and I thought that was really helpful just to get a sense of what did the community think great or awesome would look like, and how to use that information to kind of focus my thinking along the process. And so I know as we got down to talking with and getting more feedback and videos and all that the riches of information we've gotten in the last week on the candidates, I think that each of the candidates has really exemplified some portion of that very initial what great looks like. I think as I think about Dr. Bethman, one of the things we heard for sure is the want of leadership experience, a tried experience. Again, I think opening the high school is one that stood out as something that we're really still trying to work through here in Issaquah. And then, her depth of understanding across all the components of a school district. I think those really, for me, were highlights in getting to speak with Dr. Bethman. I think as we talked about Ms. Tauyik, business experience for sure came out in that early thought exchange, wanting people who'd really worked in different types of organizations and could bring that fresh thinking, as well as having experience outside of Washington. So it was great to see a candidate who embodied those items. And Dr. Templeton really, for me, was a highlight around relationship building, having an engaging demeanor and ability to focus on communications as well as connection. So I think it was a very good experience to go through this process. And I was very pleased with the 3 candidates we ended up with for this week.
Well, I just wanted to share out some of the administrator feedback that we got, because we did collect a lot of different data. And so I thought kind of going through some of that. Well, and I do want to step back. And this has been flawless. I mean, you are the most organized person. I'm so glad you are in that seat. I mean, really the right person at the right time. Suzanne has been a great support along the way. And we do appreciate that the 2 of you did this and we didn't have to. So I think it's really good to hear that long list of people that we've talked to, that we've tried to engage, because the board makes the decision, but so much of that is based on what this community needs. And we have to hear from the community in order to know that. And I hope that at the end, even if your favorite doesn't get picked, which will be likely for some people because everybody got feedback like, this is the one. But it really is about, we've listened, we've garnered information. And so I wanted to share a little bit from the administrators about Dr. Templeton. They said she was well-spoken, very engaged in the community, appears collaborative and team-focused, wants to leverage strength of the system and individuals within the system. And there's a lot more. I'm just trying to summarize some of it. With Dr. Bethman, system-focused as well, experienced running a district because in essence, as deputy director for 9 years, is kind of like Ron. Pretty much a lot of that operational stuff is already being done by her. So in essence, running a district, that's a similar size to ours. Seems genuine and caring, and could hit the ground running. With Ms. Talyik, breadth of experience, not afraid of change, educational experience coupled with business experience, clear and transparent communication, authentic, transparent, and a healthy approach to change. Again, so not afraid of change. And I think that most of that echoed a lot of the same things that I had said in my notes along the way around the strengths of each of them. The strategic plan work that Dr. Bethman has worked on, just the similar experience with Dr. Templeton. In fact, I think they all talked about strategic plans that they had worked on. I'm trying to think, there was something that Dr. Templeton said about being brave enough to acknowledge some of the issues within her current district and needing to face them head on that I appreciated. And then Ms. Talyik, she has such broad experience both in Washington State and on the East Coast. And that was something that we thought was important in the search to begin with. What I thought was interesting is that she brought in over 100 community-based organizations to support students and families. And she had some discussion around a two-way communication app that was used to communicate back and forth. And it was two ways, not just pushing out to families, but hearing back, that I thought was really interesting because we've talked about communication. And with her strategic plan, I thought it was interesting that she said it should be 10% policy and 90% implementation, and really focusing on, it doesn't matter what your strategic plan is, in the end, it's how well you implement it. But all three women, very strong candidates, and was compelled for one reason or another for each of them.
I too want to start and echo like my eternal gratitude to Anne and Suzanne. I know you helped as well, and it was amazing. But Anne, like, wow, they're like incredible. Like no one could have done it like you did it. And so
Thank you.
our district and community is like really, really blessed that you are in that seat right now. So thank you. I also want to extend a thank you to our superintendent and mobilizing his team to really support this process and welcome in these candidates. A consistent thing we heard from the candidates was how warm and welcoming it was in this community. Many of them came in before their actual formal interview day to drive around the community, to go to see what it would be like to live here, and then to really go into the buildings and go into classrooms. And we're really just, they came out inspired. So I think that we're leveraging all these opportunities and the fact that you're retiring and the superintendent's walking in behind you in a really good situation, because we know that not all superintendents get to walk into that scenario. So thank you for that. And then just gratitude to our candidates. I know that is a lot of work, a lot of emotional investment. They had to do videos for 3 questions. Then they had to do longer videos for the whole community that were released on Monday. And so to the thousands of people in our community and staff who watched these videos, thank you. To the hundreds who completed the 30 pages worth of responses, that was super helpful as well. And, you know, this was built for us to get so much stakeholder feedback. And I just want to highlight some of the community feedback because it really does highlight the strengths and potential fit for all these candidates. And for Dr. Templeton, it was highlighting that she comes with experience as a superintendent. She seems passionate. She's supportive, engaged with the arts, seems to be very relational and approachable. For Heather Taliak, it was, equity really showed through. Having experience outside the state was also seen as an important part of who she was, and many comments from the community about how authentic she felt in her answering the questions on the video. And then for Dr. Bethman, talking about the strategic plan that she did, the thinking outside the box and bringing in Running Start like instructors to the Comprehensive High Schools, seeing that was an equity issue of students who didn't have access to cars to drive. So, each one of these candidates really had a lot to offer our district. And I think that showed through the community responses that there was so much positive feedback about each one of these candidates that I thought was really impressive. And again, I think for me, it was really helpful to see and hear so much feedback. And I feel like even though it is only the 5 of us that ultimately make a decision tonight, I feel like we've really gotten touch points from thousands of people across this community and from hundreds of our staff and from our leaders in this building and across our district. So again, the process that you created and the pathway and journey you took us on, Ann, has been really, really good for us to feel at this point that it was a very comprehensive look at both what does our community want, the matching of what we have, and getting to see just 3 great candidates. So, yeah.
Very good. I'll add in a few more comments about our candidates. I know I was really, we've brought up different areas of the feedback that we've looked at, and I've digging through the advisory interview group and the union group, and it's what's interesting for so many of the groups. The feedback is very similar about the candidates, which is also very helpful to us because we're seeing that consistency and response of the community and the different groups of the community. And we're kind of seeing that kind of matches up what we saw too. So it's kind of reaffirming to see all of this. Like for Dr. Templeton, saw it as, balanced relationship, had good financial stewardship, good experience with teaching experience and in the HR area. Very comfortable and confident in front of a group. And then we had the second day, because I go through this in time, with Ms. Taliak, and kind of that feeling of, very deep thinking, very strategic thinking, was able to share a vision for the future, very goal and task oriented in being able to achieve goals. Very able to communicate and relatable to those that talking with. And then for Dr. Bethman, again, people felt very engaged and comfortable and able to relate to the experiences that she would bring. I know you guys have mentioned some of the items that she's already worked on, but again, just somebody that they were very able to relate to and communicate with. And so I too think it was super helpful to be able to hear from all these different voices back to then what the board sees, what did we think, right? And that's where we brought it back to, because in the end, all of what we're getting from the community ties into our decision, because this is the biggest thing that the board does, is hire and evaluate a superintendent. And so the final answer rests on our shoulder. And as you said, some people will be happy with our choice. Some people will be a little disappointed. But I think in the end, to Suzanne's point, any of these candidates could actually run our district and we could move forward and be successful. But we do have to take our next step. And that is where we have to take all that we have each seen and heard and bring it back together for a decision that we can debate. So this could be the time where if someone would like to make a motion, that will set us into that process.
I'll make a motion. I don't make many motions, so
You
bear
don't,
with
would you like
me.
this motion?
So, uh, I move the board select Heather Tauyik as the Issaquah School District Superintendent and enter into contract negotiations.
Second.
All right, so we have a motion on the table. And now is an opportunity for you to go ahead and speak to the motion. I think I'm going to go ahead and let people speak to the motion, just how they feel about where we are. And then I will open it up to public input if anybody would like to give input on this particular motion.
Sure, I'll start. We asked a lot of questions. In an hour, you packed in 19 questions for our superintendent candidates. And one of the questions was, what do you accept as evidence that teachers are effectively teaching and students are effectively learning? And this board, we know we like data almost to a fault. But what she led off with was really powerful. And she's like, how do you know that? Because when you walk into a classroom, and is there joy and engagement in the classroom when you walk in? And that's how you know that there's teaching, effective teaching happening, and effective learning happening. And then she went and answered all the appropriate parts about the importance of formative and summative assessments. But leading off with, like, do you see it? Like and that powerful emotional connection to what's happening in our classrooms, I thought really set her apart.
Suzanne.
I was going to use that one too. That was one of my favorite things that she said. I also liked when she talked about equity, it was very simply kids getting what they need when they need it. And I thought that was a really nice summary of, how just giving kids everything they need when they need it. She talked a lot about how she deals with administration. She said something about understanding people's patterns, which goes back to some of the team building stuff we did a long time ago of, trying to figure out how do people think so you know how to communicate with them. She talked about getting to know people's passions. But one of my other favorite things was our last question to the candidate was, do you have any questions of the board? And her question was very simply, what brings you joy? And I thought that was a super interesting question to ask the board. It's like, what part of this journey? And, after 2 years of COVID, it wasn't the easiest question in the world to answer. But I was impressed with so much about her. As I said, when she shared her own story in the context of equity, I just feel that she brings a lot to this district, a lot of experience outside the state. And I think she gets Issaquah. I think she will be a good person to move Issaquah forward.
Sydney?
I'm happy to comment. I think for me, certainly the focus on joy was super important. For sure, I think as I go back to my notes, there's a couple things other additional things that really stood out for me. And one of them was that she really talked about being very focused on high expectation for not only all students, but also all teachers and all staff. And I thought that was really important. In addition, she talked about building a culture that was based on psychological safety. And so that, you knew people were really communicating and communicating their truth, I thought was super important. And then the last thing I'll add was one of the questions that was mine to ask was around consensus building. And I have an interesting relationship with consensus building. So it was funny I got that question, but she answered in a way that really I thought was great, which was about being clear on whether consensus what you were really driving toward at that moment. And if it was, then include people and make sure you have all the right people there. And if it wasn't, then be clear of that as well and make decisions. So for that, I was very pleased.
I take a note of the consensus part about it. It's not necessarily everyone agreeing, is that, but everyone feeling as if they were heard. And I think that's what we're hoping tonight, that we'll have consensus around this within the community. We did hear all of that input and really appreciated how thoughtful all of it was. And many of you also said that just hire her now, I think was on a piece of paper somewhere. I did want to say one of the things that I wrote notes, and I think many of the things you touched on, even quoting her, but one of her quotes about education as a whole, about teaching, was that it is not a relay race, but a symphony. So it's not me teaching and then handing off to the next person, but how we work together. And I think that is really the perspective we've tried to glean and share in how we've done our SIP meetings, is that it is about how we build together. So I thought that was really good. And then I thought it was interesting when talking about looking at the priorities of the district. What are the priorities of the program? How have you prioritized them? And are they working? And what should we stop? Because I don't think that's something you hear in any government agency, is what should you stop doing? And so I really did appreciate that perspective, along with the community-based organizations and working in partnership. I know that this superintendent that we currently have has very much been supporters of many of the community-based organizations in our area, and being able to maintain that is going to be a strong support for our system.
Well, I'm agreeing with all of this. So I'm going to quote back some of the student feedback, since we hadn't referenced that part yet. Our students' feedback was quite enlightening, and they're very astute, our high school students, very astute. They really zero in on what's important, and they really connected with Miss Tauyik. They really found her to be authentic and real and genuine in the way that she listened and really deeply thought about what they were saying. Loved the way she kind of changed their room arrangement and made them more into a circle so that they could really dialogue well. Because again, it was all about the communication, listening, and understanding. For her in relation to these kids, she asked thoughtful follow-up questions. The kids really liked that. And then while we were interviewing her, I also really keyed in on her answers related to communication and how you have really authentic two-way communications and how you have a really a closed loop with it. So you make sure you hear and you listen, you hear, you evaluate it, and then feed it back, right? So that you keep that communications tight. She talked about meeting the needs of who she's communicating with, right? Because you communicate with the board differently than your staff, than parents and community. And it was kind of like finding the right means of communication with each of those groups, right? So that you have the most effective communications for whoever you're dealing with. And so I too think that she will make an excellent superintendent for the Issaquah School District and move us forward in our next journey.
And I do want to add, because we did sift through all of that public input from all the different groups. And I'm going to swag a number here, but I'm going to say it was around 80% of the responses that we got. Very much, they're all good, but this is the one you should pick.
It did feel very good to have my own views going in, right? I had my own thoughts because we had interviewed. And then reading all of this input and going, oh wow, I'm glad I'm right, because they agree. I got that reinforcement from them.
It was consistent through
It was-
every
it was
single
consistent, each
stakeholder group.
I was just amazed that not only was the board pretty quickly zeroing in on one candidate, but all of the different groups were as well. It was like the stars aligned in a way they do not normally.
I didn't expect to be at this
No,
moment
I
and
did not
feel
either.
this empowered by the consensus that we see across the community, across our leaders in this building. I think another thing that I wanted to highlight is that one of the other tough questions we asked her was, Describe the process you would use to establish a vision for the school district. What strategies would you implement to create an atmosphere of stability and continuity while at the same time initiating change for school improvement? And again, she's very focused on the process, but she said, change can only happen at the pace of trust. And so was really insightful about, sure, we can talk about change all we want, but if I don't do the relationship part and don't do the trust building, it doesn't really matter about what my vision is or what my plan is. Like, I know that I have to do that investment in relationship building first. And that gave me great comfort in knowing that as we embark on a strategic plan, as we do these things, that it's not going to be necessarily just her plan. It is going to be, how do we move the system collectively forward?
Oh, I'm sorry.
One more.
Yep, please.
One of the groups I was most interested in reading the feedback from was the support and admin staff. And again, the consensus was there, but I just wrote down a couple of things from that feedback, which was from Ms. Tawiak, which was dynamic, approachable, and open door policy. So I thought that spoke volumes as well.
Marnie?
I just wanted to say really quick, the other thing is 2 weeks ago when we left our last board meeting, I was apprehensive. We hadn't seen candidate information yet. I didn't know what we were going to get as a selection. And I was really worried because it is hard to follow somebody who's been here a long time, has done a job well done, kept this community whole, as whole as possible through COVID, but kept schools going. Whether, students were still learning throughout the process. And so bringing who was going to follow. I mean, that was really a hard one for me. Who was going to be following? And today I'm excited. I'm truly excited about the opportunities.
Anybody else want to chime in? Oh, go ahead, Harlan.
Sure. Another question we asked was, the board's executive limitations represent the values of the board. Which of these do you think is most important and why? And all three gave very different answers, which would be expected, but I liked her answers and then her reasons. And so she just went sequentially on the ones that she thought were a priority. And she started with EL4 personnel. And she said she liked it because it's people focused. And one of the responses she said was, people don't leave organizations, they leave managers. And so it's very clear for her about understanding the cultural element and the importance of that leadership brings. And then she really is about how do you identify what your measurables are, and then how do you communicate that out? So EL9 and the annual report to the community was one that she prioritized. And then EL14, because she said instruction, the summary of it, you're asking for instruction tailored to student need. It's back to her, how does she want to serve students? And then, of course, EL16.
I really liked her answer or the discussion she had about developing a strategic plan, because one of the things she said is the plan should just be 10%, and it's really 10% policy and 90% implementation, right? It's about setting clear metrics and measurements along the way, and they need to be both ambitious but feasible, right? And in the creation of it, all voices need to have the opportunity to contribute to it. And I felt like she had robust experience in this area, and that that would be an asset to what we need. And she talked about, the strategic plan is really an accountability to the public. And I'd like to see us take on that work. Sydney?
I think it was also clear she'd done the research. She spent the time through the board meetings. She was clear on what some of the challenges were. She had developed a perspective on what those challenges were. She even, I think, picked out some of the things that maybe we're known for across the group. But I appreciate good intel and good research. And I think that really shows of what it'll look like to care about the details going into the future.
especially as she transitions into a policy governance experience,
mhm.
because while none of them had that direct experience, you know, when asked about that, she responded that she loves the idea of very specific role clarity and expectations, that it supports partnership and accountability. And she really looked forward to both of those pieces.
Okay, we pause for a second. I was going to see if there's any public input, either in the room or on Zoom. If anyone would like to speak. Nobody? Okay. Okay. All right. If there's no public input, that's fine too. Just wanted to keep it focused on this item. So we're here. It's very exciting. You know, I actually forgot to ask. I was planning to do one because I wasn't sure. I think I'd like to, if you're all good with it. It was a little bit different, but I would like to do it. Does anybody have anything else to add in? Give me a piece of paper with the motion so I can reread it, right? I have it here. So, here, I had it. Okay, so the motion on the floor, because we haven't done this in 9 years, right? It's been a long time since we've done this. And then what was that? No, okay. It is. Okay, so the motion on the floor had been, I move the board select Miss Heather Tauyik as the Issaquah School District Superintendent and enter into contract negotiations. I did fill in the blank, just so you all know there wasn't anything there in advance. All right, that is our motion on the floor. And so I will do a roll call vote. I'll start with myself and say aye. Director Weaver?
Aye.
Director Mullings?
Aye.
Director Moraldo?
Aye.
And Director Gallinger?
Aye.
All right, we have a unanimous vote to select our next superintendent for the Issaquah School District. So I am very pleased, and I thank you all for your engagement in doing this. I thank the community for all of the input that we got. I thank our superintendent and Nancy and Diane, who is not here tonight, because they have been tremendous in keeping everything organized and people in the right places and keeping our candidates comfortable during the day so that they could really engage in the interview process. I thank all the cabinet back there because everybody kind of played one role or another in either taking candidates on tours, organizing the advisory group or the high school students or the union folks that had been brought together. So a lot of people were involved in this, as well as those community members who helped by taking our candidates out on meals. So I will really say this was truly a group effort, and I think we have an excellent result. All right. Thank you, everybody.
And if I would.
Yeah.
Ann, first of all, I want to congratulate the 5 of you. I it's really been a joy to watch this process. I think you've come to an outstanding decision here tonight, and I'm super excited for the district, the community, and for Heather as well. I want to give my thanks as well to my team. They all worked hard. Diane, Nancy, everybody, all the public input. I think the process that you did was amazing. I know you all know it, Ann was amazing this week. She basically was camped out just in the office next to me. But she's not going to get a paycheck at the end of the month like everybody else does. So I think it was just really incredible. I also want to thank all of the applicants who considered Issaquah, certainly the finalists. And lastly, I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to meet the candidates. I thought, as I shared with President Moore each morning, at 7:30 was, it could have been a little like 9 o'clock would have been nice, but I understand we had long days. To let them know that this has been an outstanding relationship, and that's what they're coming into. And, unfortunately, when you look at superintendent departures across the country, actually just a normal kind of plain old retirement like mine is not really the norm. Often there's some drama behind the scenes, and I wanted to reassure those candidates that that was not the case here, that they would be coming into a just truly amazing community an incredible school system with amazing and fabulous employees, but that this relationship, which is so critical to the success of a school district, is really solid. And I just couldn't be happier right now. I'm so, I just think you did a great process and came to a great conclusion. So congratulations again to all of you as well.
Yes, I know. Thank you. And I should have mentioned that we actually started each of the 3 days with our candidates with you and I greeting them at 7:30 in the morning
Yes.
so that they could do their first meet and greet with the all admin at 8 a.m. sharp. And we gave them the nice little rundown on the district. But I thank you for coming and joining me at 7:30 a.m. every morning.
It was my pleasure. And it was also
Yeah, I
my
know.
pleasure when I would introduce them to our all admin team to be able to just walk out the door and not have the stress of having to go through that hour-long meeting. So
Exactly. I will say, so that people are clear, that the next steps in the process is to negotiate the contract with what will be our new superintendent. And then that will come up later for the board to actually approve sometime later in April. And so that will be our next step that we will work through. All right. Well, we're ready to let this one go. I'm very happy. I'm relieved, and we can continue on our journey to our next exciting thing that's new, and that is the proposed new governance policy on our student representatives. And this is the first read of what will be a new GP related to the change in this will formalize
Say
the
what a GP is.
governance process. Do I have it right? Because what we
Yes.
do is refer it to as GP, to formalize the changes we want to make in our student representative process. And I actually think students are pretty excited about this. I know Andrea was sharing while she was working with the students during this interview process, she was explaining to them the changes in the student rep, and they seemed, because they were so engaged with this process, they were also very excited about that prospect. And they thought what we were talking about doing sounded very exciting. Most of those kids are the kids that are going to be the ASB officers for next year. So they may be a little bit too involved already to then take on something like that. But she was sharing, share it with your friends, let kids know that this is coming. So I think there's a buzz out there about our new student rep process. So our normal process would be to do like a first read, which is what we're going to do now. And then we'll take any feedback on changes to it. And then we would do a second read before we would adopt it. If we make lots of changes, we may come back and do another first read before we would adopt it. But I think we're going to start by having Sydney go ahead and read through the whole thing. Do you want Stephen to put it up on the big screen? So Stephen, the thing that said, yes, that one, if you open that. Yeah, and
Okay, thank you, Stephen. That's super helpful. My sharing and I are not friends tonight.
oh yeah, he can put it up there.
And I will read it here. So again, this is a culmination of another, I think, wonderful process. I've enjoyed being a part of it in the board's interest in deepening our voice from students and hearing from our students who've been involved that, they'd like to be engaged in a different way, that they believe they have more to offer to the process. And meeting with community partners, other school districts, to understand how they go about doing this. So to be clear, we've had, I say always, but for a very long time, had a student rep program. And so in many ways, what we're doing is formally codifying that student rep program. So that's always existed. We've had students identified, a couple we're on tonight, from our ASB community across the different high schools to come in and participate in board meetings, which we used to feel a lot more in person prior to COVID, to be able to join with the board on different outings, like visiting with legislators as an example, to deepen their civic understanding and to provide their voice into the board process. So that's always been in place. What we saw as a collective, I think at one of our retreats, was that we wanted to refresh that approach, bring in some new thinking and formalize the process. And so it's been super fun. So you have in front of us, we've talked about this a few times. It is now a GP, so a governance process document. It would be formally number 12 and student representative. So I will read and we can make any changes in this first read. So GP 12 student representatives starts with a value statement. The board recognizes that its primary responsibility is to serve the students of the Issaquah School District through goal setting, program development, financial affairs, operating policies, systematic reviews of the school programs, and advocating on behalf of students and schools. In order to be effective, the board needs to understand the experiences and priorities of its students. Accordingly, number one, the board has created a non-voting advisory positions to act as student representatives to the board. There will be 2 positions each for Gibson Neck, Issaquah, Liberty, and Skyline High Schools for a total of 8 student representatives. Number 2, student representatives will be selected in the spring prior to the year that they will serve as representatives. The term in office will be for 1 school year, beginning in August and concluding at the end of June. Students are eligible to apply for additional terms. Number 3, the role and responsibilities of the student representatives will be as follows. A, to provide student voice to the board and to district administration. B, to serve as liaisons by collecting student voices from their schools and bringing that voice to discussions at board meetings. C, to utilize the communication tools at their schools to facilitate communication between the board and the student bodies. D, to attend all regular school board meetings which occur during the term of office. E, to review the board meeting agenda prior to each meeting, including the reading of materials linked to the agenda. F, to be very familiar with, collect student body input on, and report out to the board on 1, 2, or 3 executive limitations, or ELs, to be assigned by the board. G, to review the historical performance of the ELs assigned to them. H, to provide reports to the board during the scheduled student input portion of the board meeting agenda and during the discussion of the ELs assigned to them. I, to participate in discussions at regular open meetings of the board where applicable, but not make any motions or vote. J, to report back to the student body about the board deliberations and actions that are relevant to the student body. K, to adhere to the rules and regulations pertaining to board members. L, to attend special meetings or board retreats if requested or invited. M, to participate in board training sessions when invited, such as the WASDA conference and legislative assembly. When these occur on school days, student representatives will follow the established prearranged absence procedures at their high school. Number 4, all student representatives are expected to attend all board open public meetings, but will not hold voting rights, make motions, hold board office, or attend closed executive sessions. 5, all student representatives are expected to participate in an onboarding meeting held prior to the beginning of their term with 1 or 2 board members. This meeting will include reviewing expectations and responsibilities and assigning an executive limitation by the board. 6, student representatives will refrain from committing any group, examples ASB, school administration, a club, athletic program, etc., to any position or action. 7, any student interested in serving as a student representative must apply for the position. The application and selection period will occur yearly in April to May. To apply, the student must submit prior to the deadline, A, a completed electronic application, B, recommendations from 2 staff members. 8, in order to qualify to serve as student representatives, the applicant must be A, in grade 10, 11, or 12 during their term of office, B, enrolled in the high school which they represent or living within the school boundary, C, be in good standing, including but not limited to passing 6 of 7 grades, attending regularly and not under any school discipline. D, a strong communicator. They must be able to represent the student body in providing input to the board and to communicate with the student body at large as they take information back to their school. 9, the high school activities coordinators will serve as advisors for the student representatives. 10, 1 or 2 board members will meet twice annually with the student representatives to assess the experience and plan for future work. 11, the student representatives serve at the discretion of the board. The board may remove a student representative for failure to fulfill their duties or failure to maintain good standing in academics, attendance, or behavior, or for behaviors the board deems unacceptable as a member of the board of directors or embarrassing the school, the Issaquah School District. And then 12 is reference material to the school board handbook, the EL monitoring calendar, and the About Us School Board section of the school district website.
Well, thank you for doing that. That was quite long. So thank you for getting us through the whole
And
thing.
thank you, Suzanne, for helping to reformat it into the
Mhm.
appropriate structure of being a GP.
Yeah, this has been a very collaborative effort with Andrew McCormick from as executive director of secondary, high school, sorry.
Thank you,
Along
Andrea.
with this group to help create this kind of process for our new student, our new process for student representatives and formalizing. So now would be a chance for any board member to suggest any changes or ask any questions about what any of it means as we look at it. I know Harlan's looking, he's.
Route number 4. That's why. So
Number 4.
when it says all student representatives are expected to attend all board open public meetings. So is that the expectation that all 8 people will be here in this room every time?
That is as currently documented. Would you like to suggest a revision? It does seem
Wouldn't all
like,
be on the dais.
No.
Only the ones doing the EL would be up here. But yeah, the assumption, as I read it, was to have them all attend all the meetings to the extent possible.
I mean, it could be, we could be, they are welcome to attend all public board meetings and requested at a percentage, or the ones they're specifically presenting at. We could soften that a little for sure, if that seems better.
Yeah, it seems like encouraged would be a better word, except for the 2 people who are doing the assignment based on the monitoring calendar. Just because our students are really
I know.
busy.
Yeah,
And I
that's
don't,
fair.
Andrea, if you have any comments, you're free to come up and share with us too. I don't know if where they were going was to try to make sure kids were really going to do this. Marnie?
I would definitely say they're expected to attend when when it's assigned or when their executive limitation is
Yes.
assigned.
Right, that I definitely think, because that's the whole point of them being assigned an EL is that they come for that, that meeting. I do think too, and I've made a thought, and we'll have to keep this in mind, is sometimes we make adjustments to our monitoring calendar for things that happen.
Fair.
And so we have to be thoughtful of making sure we cycle that back with the students, because they're going to start with a monitoring calendar that was static and from the last time we passed it. And so we just you have to have to help us remember if we do that, we need to get that back to the students and have some grace over the fact that we might have just changed it to something they can't do. And we'll have to keep that in mind.
Good thing we have Nancy and Diane to keep us on the
I
straight and
know,
narrow.
keep us on the straight and narrow. So we all have to have a new thing in mind anytime we consider making a change to ELs. It doesn't just impact us, it impacts our students.
And perhaps, because we say in here somewhere that there's 1 or 2 board members doing an onboarding meeting, and there's 1 or 2 board members meeting with the student twice a year. Maybe we should have something in our board GP, which is the responsibilities of the board, that says at the beginning of each year, we assign who that is, just like when we have a new board member, we assign that board member a mentor. So maybe we need a reminder, and I don't remember, GP4, GP2, whatever it is, to say that, the beginning of each year, we're going to decide who the go-to person is for the student reps. And then as part of that go-to person's responsibility, they give the kids a heads up, your EL moved.
So I think for me, I'd like to have it be the expectation is to attend when their EL is being presented. but that we encourage them to attend all other board meetings. And then the language around definitely not holding voting rights, that's going to be important.
Yeah.
But I do think that it is one of the things that has kind of held back, one, us getting to know the student reps that are coming to our meetings, but two, feeling like they're actually able to input and talk. Because if we all remember our first couple of meetings, as a board member, you really sit and listen and don't really engage. And I think what's happening is that the students never get to the point where they know us well enough or know the material well enough to ever engage with us. So we've not been getting out of it what we really anticipate wanting.
And I'll just share one more thing, getting real-time information on the ISF program, that they strive for 80% attendance, but the expectation is, otherwise the expectation is to be in place.
I don't
You're-
think your mic's on.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
Andrea McCormick, Executive Director of High Schools. I honestly, a lot of this just came from some of the Riverview language that we were using as a foundation, but I also do recall in our discussions that we're looking for students that want to engage at a really deep level and want to be more than committed to just their EL, but rather just the whole process in itself. So, but I think building in some room for flexibility so they don't feel pressure if they have conflicts with their busy schedules makes sense. So however you want to word that.
I liked encouraged.
Yeah, and based on the student, discussions that came throughout this week, there were students that were in that group that are ready for the application.
We know.
They want to come and probably want to come to all of them. So just, however you want to build in the
Yeah.
flexibility, I think makes sense for what we want them to do and what they want to do. So.
How about strongly encouraged?
I
I
like
think
encouraged.
I'll let you guys work on
I
that.
think I would
And
say
then
just
Work it out in the
encourage.
onboarding.
I think too
All
that,
right.
we have to have a special place for them, right? Because
Right.
if
A place
all
of
8
honor,
comes,
yep.
right, they
Right.
can't be here.
Front
And so
row.
our front row is gonna now be reserved for our students and have
it's very
some maybe handheld
Yes.
mics near them so that,
Oh, yeah.
because we want to make it easy for them to engage and they need to be mic'd to be able to talk.
Yeah.
Because everybody needs to be mic'd to talk on, so we pick it up on our recording.
That makes sense.
Perfect.
Yeah, you were very clear through the summary feedback you provided for this week that students were very interested in the governance process and wanted to attend our executive session if they needed to make sure that we needed assistance in decision-making. Yes.
We love
Spoken
it.
like true Issaquah students. We would
That's
expect
right.
nothing less.
They definitely, a little over the top. I mean, it's awesome in that way, right? That they are so engaged that yes,
They
they want to
were-
be in there.
Yes.
They were ready to be here.
They
Okay,
are.
any
Yes.
other items?
Just a simple grammatical thing on number 2, the last sentence. Student, I think should be students.
Number 2.
Oh,
The
it sure
vast
should
student.
be.
Okay.
Which one? 2?
Number
Yeah.
2,
Okay.
last sentence.
Even your
Students.
grammar geek makes typos.
I know. This is so unexpected.
Mm,
Hey, it's a typo.
yeah.
As we wrap up reading this, I do really appreciate, Sydney, all of that work that you've put into this and really dove in to investigate, to find out, to look at ways that we could improve this. It's better input for us. We can really start to talk more about how we're student focused as a board. And we do that when we truly have engagement with students and their input. So I do appreciate all the work that you did. And I liked being your sidekick, even though I didn't do anything.
You did a great deal.
Okay, so I can make, excuse me, for the second read, I can make those 2 changes to this and I can go back to whatever other GP it is
Yeah.
and
Oh,
suggest an edit
that would be
for
great.
the,
Best team
art
ever.
unless you want to.
Best team ever.
No.
I sort of just took over
No,
for you, but.
this is
No,
not
that
taking
would be
over.
great, 'cause then we can close the loop and bring back in, so that we tie it all together.
Yeah.
And put that part in there. Because again, the more we can formalize this, the more we ensure it continues
That's right.
year after year and year. into the
Exactly right.
future,
And the
right?
students, I just don't want to miss that when we met with ASB, I think it was the exec board, Andrew, if I'm saying the right
Oh,
group.
the IDSC?
When we met with them, boy, were they engaged and interested and feedback giving. So I just can't underscore the fact that there are a set of our students who are super interested in this work and wanting to dig into the policies and be a part of it. Were there any more feedback in this first read? Superintendent?
The only thought I had was you get very specific about your four high schools. And
I know.
being the
Do we need
optimist
to-
that I am, I do believe you're going to have a fifth high school. So I guess you could
know,
say two
well-
students.
Policies
From each
can be changed.
high
They can be
school.
changed, or we could say from each high school.
Yeah. I did think of that though, too, Director Weaver. I thought
Yeah.
you have a cadence of annually or
Yes.
periodically reviewing them.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, you could make the addition and that way you would be able to actually name that school as well. That was the only thought I had. I think that the work that you've done is really incredible. And I know we've talked for several years about doing something like this. So it feels really good to actually see progress being made while you were selecting a new superintendent as well. So you've been
Exactly.
very busy.
Hey, this is
Yeah.
how we
I
we
like
do lots at the
listing-
same time.
The high schools, and because just Gibson Neck is a much smaller school, there is a chance, I mean, they're super kids and I'm very hopeful we'll find kids that want to do this. There is always the chance we won't end up finding someone, just saying, right? There's always that chance. I don't want to lose the cadence that they are included in this because the next year we would want it to be there. I wouldn't want it to ever create a gap. And that could be true for any high school. It's just there's
Yeah.
smaller population you're pulling from, right?
But you know, it also feels like with Gibson Eck being such a project-oriented school, that this could
This could be in the
create a
wheelhouse.
project for
Awesome
them
project.
that would, oh, what are the things they strive
Yeah,
for, the learning goals? What do they call them? Anyway, they can achieve some of those learning goals by
Right.
serving
Their
on this
competencies,
board.
maybe.
Competencies, thank you. Don't know why I couldn't come up with that word.
Mhm.
But this would be a way for them to
Yeah.
acquire some of those competencies. So I
Certainly.
would think it would be real popular. at Gibson
See,
Eck.
then we'll never not have them. Yeah.
And we would
oh,
be happy to have to edit this
I
policy
know.
to include a fifth high school. That
We
would-
will.
You know,
that
I
would
will
be
come back to the board and do that.
Yeah. We will make sure that happens, won't
For
we?
free. Harlan.
Okay.
I also think, Suzanne, as you're doing it, there's an opportunity on the, we have some mixed cases on student reps in here.
Do we?
Yeah, like 2, it's rep is lowercase, 3, it's uppercase on
Oh,
rep.
oh, you're talking about capitalization.
Capitalization.
Okay. All right, I'll check that.
Yeah, we still have
Awesome.
time because
Yeah, that's
Yes.
easy.
yeah, this is easy to make those changes. We'll have this done before
We've
of
got
course,
plenty of
before
time.
the end of this year. So
All
That's
right.
great.
Well, thank you for the feedback
Yeah.
and we'll be back for the second read.
Perfect. All right. So that
Yay.
one's all good. We'll go with that. And now we're on to legislative matters. We have a few minutes before you, I know you have to
Yep.
leave, Harlan.
I think we're going to make it. So I think the only thing is you all received a summary email from Representative Sen about the legislative session, and I will respond on behalf of the board. Thank you for her continued advocacy and keeping us in the loop.
Great.
I just had one question. I had sent out the notice about transition kindergarten, and I thank you so much, Superintendent, for your letter. And I don't know if it had any impact or when the bill is going to be signed.
We were checking earlier this evening and we haven't seen it yet. And it's kind of complicated because it's a budget proviso. It wasn't like a
Mhm.
separate bill. So, and apparently the governor had done some line item vetoes incorrectly from the last session. And so I think they're probably being very careful about that, but I hadn't heard. I did try to check before the start of the meeting and I hadn't heard, but strongly advocating for them to not mess with transitional K.
And then, of course, since I guess the last time we met, would have been 14, yeah, the ledge session has now closed. And it wasn't necessarily kind to us because we had great hope for the ESSER floor bill that did not make it through. And so coming up in our April 7th meeting, we will have dedicate quite a bit of time to our budget and understanding where we are in the budget, what our financial picture is going forward, and a plan in relation to that. So we'll have quite a bit of time on April 27th to dig into that. I know Superintendent Thiele sent out with his Friday update some, what was that? Did I say a different day?
Yeah.
April 7th. Oh, I'm sorry. April 7th is the board meeting. Thanks for correcting that. But Superintendent Thiele had sent out information and his Friday update related to the budget to make sure everybody is reading through that and understanding with trying to get any clarity around the information. If you want to reach out to Superintendent Thiele and he can connect with you to deepen that understanding so we can have a rich conversation on April 7th.
And we might add, although we haven't done agenda planning yet, but I got the impression that we were probably going to start that meeting at 5 o'clock.
It did sound that way. We wanted, instead of doing the work study time and then part of the time in the board meeting, having that split and then sometimes having to recap, to just do the whole thing inside the board meeting. So it would seem likely, and unless there's something else that we have to do in that agenda, that normal work study time, it's likely we'll start at 5. I'm not sure yet. Because it also depends on what else is on the agenda. If there isn't.
Yeah, I understand that. I
Yeah.
just, in case people are
Yeah,
still
it's
watching
very
at this point,
possible.
I wanted to throw it out there because although I know Leisha would do a great job of publicizing a change in our start time, I think people get upset when they tune in at 6 and go, wait, they've been talking for an hour.
Right. It's definitely possible. We'll start at 5 p.m. for the regular board meeting and we'll announce that. All right, then anything else on legislative? Okay. And then we are on to works in progress.
Okay, I did want to acknowledge, and we already did a little earlier, Nancy Francis here to my right tonight, administrative assistant filling in for Diane. I have to say that Diane and Nancy make quite a dynamic duo. And so thank you, Nancy, for your help tonight and allowing Diane to attend to some family matters. The first thing I wanted to talk about, because there has been a lot of other work happening in the district. In fact, I've had people say, so are you counting the days? And I'm like, no, I'm too busy. There's a lot of work to be done in the system right now. So one of the things that I wanted to talk briefly about tonight was the Healthy Youth Survey. Our Healthy Youth Survey results are now public. They get to us first in an embargoed format, but they've been unembargoed, and we will be posting them to the ISD website soon, probably as early next week. As a reminder, the 2020 administration of the Healthy Youth Survey was postponed. This is a every other year survey. So normally we wouldn't have done one in the fall of 21, but it was postponed until this past fall due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The Healthy Youth Survey is taken by our 6th, 8th, 10th, and 12th grade students. It's taken broadly across the state of Washington. I also know that there are plans in the works for the Issaquah School District to partner once again with the Influence the Choice organization and the Issaquah Schools Foundation on some outside analysis of our data and a joint ISF ITC ISD community event to review and discuss our results as we've done in years past. It's an example of a great collaboration and partnership amongst community organizations. I can say an initial review has confirmed something we expected, and that is definitely increasing percentages of students reporting mental health concerns, whether it be self-harm, suicide ideation, even suicide attempts. We saw increases pretty much across the board in those areas. And again, not unexpected, but important data for us to have. There was also a bit of good news that was kind of unexpected, and that substance abuse, drug and alcohol use are down across all grade spans as well. And I know that's been a big focus of organizations like Influence the Choice and the school district as well. So there is some encouragement there, but kudos to all the students and staff who work to make the Healthy Youth Survey happen. I also just wanted to note, this is, March is National Athletic Trainer Month, and it just so happened that the board is aware of our WANIC consortium, which is our CTE, Career and Technical Education Consortium, that we belong to with the Lake Washington School District, North Shore School District, Bellevue, Mercer Island, Riverview, and Issaquah. And we have a facility that we operate out of the Lake Washington Technical College campus, and DigiPen is part of that. But today, our Wannick Council meeting was at Issaquah High School. And it's always joyful to be out and to have the other superintendents and the Wannick staff come out to Issaquah High to visit and tour our fabulous Wannick Sports Med program. And because it's a Wannick program, there are students from other districts that attend that program as well. And it is it truly is an incredible program. You'll recall that this program has won countless state and national sports medicines competitions over the years. And I just have to say, the teacher, we have sports med in all of our high schools, and they're wonderful programs, and the students really take advantage of it. But our longest serving teacher, to my knowledge, Mr. Todd Parsons at Issaquah High, is just really a treasure, I would say. And this program he has built over the years is amazing. And I asked Mr. Parsons, it was fun. We were in there. They were learning about the tendons in your arm and how they test them by tapping them, So I actually kind of was learning something, and we were all observing this. And I asked the teacher, I said, how he's been here over 20 years. Have you ever had a student, who's come back to you and said, this program really inspired them to pursue a career in medicine? And he said, oh, yes. In fact, he told the story of how on at least 2, and I think maybe he had said 3 occasions, former students had invited him, and he attended while they performed surgery as physicians. He shared that he had a personal injury and had a physical therapist who happened to be one of his former students. So absolutely many students who have gone through that program, and probably in our programs in our other high schools as well, it has inspired them to go on and pursue careers in medicine. So what a fun day for us. Listening to our students tonight, it was interesting, because we were walking around the campus and stuff. I was observing, who's wearing masks, who's not wearing masks. Is there any issues with it? And I didn't see anything. I mean, you saw some students with masks, some without, some staff with, some without. It just seemed to be part of the culture. And I really appreciate that everybody has kind of seems to take into heart our messaging around, respecting people's choices. So I thought that was really good. The other thing that I've been doing a lot of, and some of my team has been doing this as well, are levy talks. Obviously, we have 3 important levy measures on the April 26th ballot. So again, my team and I have been giving lots of factual levy talks, and I really enjoy these as it gets me out in front of our incredible PTAs. It also has gotten me out in front of some of our community-based service groups. I just recently did one with the Kiwanis. I didn't do my own Rotary Club this year. Mr. Turney did that one because I thought the poor club deserved an opportunity not to just hear from Ron all the time. Rotary, yes, my Rotary Club. Thank you. And we have great service clubs in our organization. But I really, truly do enjoy the opportunity that levy talks over the years have given me to get out there and interface. And I have more levy talks coming up as well. And then lastly, and this is a big work project for us, President Moore spoke to it briefly, but since the conclusion of the legislative session, we are now in our budget development phase of the year. And so there's been a lot of work happening on that front. And I do wish that the Senator Wellman, Rep. Callan bill that would have created more of a state-funded floor for ESSER funding. These are the emergency COVID relief dollars that I think we've well stated our case here, that districts like ours receive very small amounts of those, even though we still had to combat the the pandemic, just like every other school district. It was really disappointing to see that piece of legislation go down because it would have driven a significant amount of money that I think would have really helped our district. So we are sharpening our pencils now and getting down to serious budget work. And we do have some work to do. And I've been point blank asked the question, are we going to have to do reductions even if our levies pass? And I do think we will have to do that. I don't think it's cataclysmic. I mean, it will be if our levies don't pass, and that is not a threat to anyone. That is simply a factual statement. If we have to take that kind of money out of the system, it would be it would change our system as people know it, particularly on the EP&O side, since that represents about 15.5% of our overall funding. But I look forward to our conversation in 2 weeks and any conversations that individual board members will want to have with myself or my team as we build up to that. And, so we've got important work to do there, but I have faith in the organization that we can do it, and we will come out the other side, still a very strong organization that is capable of doing great things, such as having the highest on-time grad rates of any large districts in the state of Washington. So that's busy work that we have to keep moving forward on. So that's what I was going to share tonight, President Moore.
All right, thank you. Yeah, that will take up quite a bit of our effort in April to work through the budget and the budget changes that need to happen. All right. All right, on to announcements and correspondence. Does anybody have anything they need to add in? All right. Then calendar and future agenda topics. One item, and we do now have everybody's response to the Cougar Mountain Middle School dedication. It does look like in the end, the April 25th got everybody. So I guess we should go with that. I was really rooting for April 19th. I thought it would be a good day to do it, but
Okay.
if April 25th still works, it was the way to get Marnie into. Yeah. If April 25th still works, then that is probably what we should do.
Okay.
So-
We'll have people make sure and put that hold on their calendar. Because I think I had been telling them to hold the 19th.
I know, I was going for the 19th.
But that's
until I
good.
got
Better
all
to
the
have everybody
responses
there,
and-
absolutely.
But the April 25th, we'll get everybody there.
So will we get a tour as well?
Yeah, it's after school. So, they're working out some of the details. It's kind of more of a dedication than a ribbon cutting since we're already in there, but we'll probably
Right.
still cut a ribbon as
course,
well.
sure.
And and absolutely tour.
Great.
Good.
I'll actually be at the campus tomorrow morning giving a levy talk too. So it'll be the first time I've been back in the building and there'll be students in there. So I'm excited about that.
Nice. Okay, so we'll get a calendar invite for April 25th sent out for that item. I think right now, the only other thing I can think of is that we still have the April 27th town hall coming up at the end of the month.
And April 26th at my house.
The levy election
Ding, ding, ding.
celebration on the 26th.
Yes.
Yeah.
Celebration.
26th, 27th, and then we have a board meeting on the 28th. So 3 nights in a row. Well, 3 days in a row. This one's in the afternoon at 3:30 to 4:30. So it's after school at Cougar Mountain Middle School. All right, those are the only ones I can think of unless anybody has anything else. All right, then we will adjourn our meeting 5 minutes early, everybody. Please notice.